You are tuned into Mostly Humans. The opinions and views shared by the hosts of this podcast are uniquely their own and do not reflect the view or opinions of the companies they work for. P.S. Don't sue or fire us. Thanks so much. Now let's get into the episode.
Like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. I don't know if you watch Stranger
Yes.
Things, but it's like
Yes.
this hive mind, lots of just like gurgly, weird stuff. Very creepy. You're right. You can't live like that for too long. Like Protoss, Terran. I like the Terran guy who used to like the flamethrower guy when you pick him. He was just smoking a cigarette.
What a rabbit hole to go down. So,
And we just lost 5 subscribers.
yeah, that's fine. Whatever. They'll come back later. Hey, welcome back to Mostly Humans. We're trying to demystify AI. For the people at home, I am one of your hosts, Justin Wright. I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Bigelow. Matt, how is the week going?
The Giants are a terrible team. And then all of a sudden, like every good coach came available all at once, which is super exciting. But really all I have as a Giants fan the last like 10 years has been the off season, right? The draft and all the coaching changes that have happened. And I'm just so nervous they're not going to land my guy. And that guy is John Harbaugh. I want him so bad.
Ooh, nice.
I really, really want him. And I'm so nervous because he's in East Rutherford, New Jersey today, which is arguably not a great place to hang out. That doesn't really help your sales pitch. But anyway, he's in East Rutherford, and I just don't want the Giants to let him leave the building, but apparently he wants to go to Tennessee or Atlanta afterwards. So I'm just really freaking out. But what's it like to be in the playoffs? What's that? That must be interesting.
It is interesting. And again, whenever we release this, I got to go to the first Patriots playoff game, which was pretty awesome.
You went? No way. Good for you.
Yeah. So it was cool. I don't often venture out to Gillette. So for anybody not Boston based who's listening to this, they're like, oh yeah, Gillette Stadium, Boston, whatever. No, it's in Foxborough, Mass, which is pretty far. And then you hit everybody who's going there is going there to watch a game. It's like nothing against Foxborough, the town. I'm sure it's lovely, but like people aren't venturing there on a regular basis. So if you're driving there to go to a game, so is everybody else. And it's just like, it's chaos, and then leaving is chaos. But it was a blast. I do feel bad because I don't think we deserve to have another like MVP caliber quarterback already.
Don't say.
But it's something in the water over here.
I'll put you this way about Patriots. It is a little obnoxious. It's just a smidge obnoxious because this doesn't seem like you guys are going to be like, remember when the Panthers were like really good like 10 years ago? They went like 15-1. Then they were just kind of normal again after that. Like this doesn't seem like this is about to be a Patriots team that's like kind of good. Like Atlanta was really good that year. You guys had them. You were down by like 23 points and came back.
Oh yeah.
This feels like, no, the culture's back, young stud running back, really solid offensive and defensive line, amazing offensive coordinator who will never leave because no one's going to hire him again. It's like, you guys are about to go on another 10-year run. The rest of the world, we kind of wanted you guys to be like at least middle of the pack for like another 5 years.
Listen, I am the first to admit that I would be okay with that. Like it's almost blasphemy to say this in New England, but I think people who expect us to continue to do well are greedy. Like we had the sports dynasty where every team was winning. It was the greatest time to be a Boston sports fan. It's okay if we have some normal years, but I don't want to say it too loudly for the people who may live around me here in Dorchester because I might get assaulted for saying that. But I do think, you gotta pass it around a little bit.
Well, watch this hard turn segue. So speaking of Boston and its dominance, Boston is becoming a budding AI tech scene.
Yes, indeed it is.
Anthropic, the large language model provider who has Claude, released Claude Cowork or Coworker.
Mm-hmm.
It is really big news. So we kind of punted on some other stuff that we're going to talk about. I don't know much about it. So I kind of represent the listener on today's episode. And I just wanted to ask you all about it. And maybe you could even show us some a little bit at one point today for those who are watching on YouTube. But what is it all about? People are really saying this is a huge step forward for AI. I don't think you could work for any technology company and people aren't talking to you about this or sending you videos of it. Like 5 people sent me videos. So this is big news. Like, what is it exactly?
Yeah. So what it is in reality is basically just a UI put on top of Claude Code. But what happened was in the developer world, the software developer world, people have been shouting from the mountaintops about Claude Code's capabilities for a while now, because when Anthropic released their latest model, Opus 4.5, which is their most powerful model, people who kind of were using AI for software development before and bouncing around to other tools, everybody kind of had this moment where everybody just said, whoa, wait a minute, this is now suddenly really, really good. Because code generation and content creation, if we talk about two use cases that I think AI is very strong at because it's been trained on large amounts of both of those things, like writing code and writing software and syntax and all of that is very heavily documented. And a bunch of the training material that these models were trained on is code. It's software that's been written that already exists, all that stuff. And the same with written content. You know, we talked about how language models are really good at predicting the next word and creating written content. And so they're equally powerful in terms of software development, but before you had to really babysit it a lot. It's like, I have a small child, and if I turn my back for too long, she's trying to take something off a counter or knock something over or, in some other way, shape, or form, injure herself. And so you have to, really watch little kids. And code generation with AI tools was kind of the same way before, where it could do some cool stuff, but you had to be very, very specific. You had to watch it. You probably had to fix a decent amount of mistakes. And then Opus 4.5 released, and all of a sudden you have a senior level developer at your fingertips,
Wow.
which doesn't require that much oversight. Now, so developers are saying, hey, this is like the GPT-4 moment all over again when ChatGPT suddenly got usable. But to everybody else who thinks code is gobbledygook and, has never run a program from a terminal. I know we were joking around about this because I was getting you set up with Claude Code recently and, doing terminal commands and stuff. But for the vast majority of people, that's not a normal part of their workflow. And so even though this tool was really, really powerful, people weren't using it. And so essentially what they did with this Claude Cowork, product is they packaged the power of Claude Code in a desktop app UI that does a lot of the same things, but where you don't have to write any code. You don't have to live in a terminal like, you're in the Matrix hacking into the mainframe. You can just kind of talk to it and tell it what you want it to do. And it unlocks a lot of those same capabilities, which we can dig into a little bit, but for a much broader user base who wants nothing to do with, looking at a coding environment or using a terminal on their computer.
That makes sense on its face. But where I'm confused on, where I think the users might be confused, this isn't a vibe coding tool. It's not like Claude Code packaged with a UI for vibe coding. Claude Cowork is almost like this bold future that we've always predicted for AI, you and I, which is like conversating with your tools and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So, genuine question: how does it go from it's a UI on top of Claude Code that makes it easy, but Claude Code is used to write code, and this is apparently some tool that's useful for knowledge workers who have no interest in generating code or vibe coding? Take us through that.
Yeah. So high level, for anybody who hasn't used Claude Code or these coding tools, they use files with instructions, just like any other. We've talked about prompting and even creating custom GPTs. You can upload files with instructions for how you want the bot to act and respond and give it context and all of these things. So these AI coding tools use files with instructions that tell them how to do their job. So if you take the software development and coding piece out of it, at their core, these tools leverage these instruction files to figure out what type of app that you're building, what they should do in terms of their process, in terms of planning and, all this stuff. So in many ways, they're still being prompted the same way as these other AI tools that we use, these custom GPTs that we build, all of this stuff. And these files kind of dictate this behavior. What people found out is that they can create these instruction files and talk to Claude Code without writing a single line of code, but because it has access to all of these tools and it can connect to all of these systems and it can leverage MCP, which we've talked about, people just started basically creating personal operating systems for their life in Claude Code, which were just a bunch of these instructions documents for how to access their email, how to parse messages. Basically, people started training this digital personal assistant on every aspect of their professional life or home life or whatever. And they did it within a Claude Code project, even though the project or the result of the project was not necessarily to write code or build software. And what they discovered is that because it can create software, you can tell Claude to do certain things. It has access to these tools, and it can maybe write a little script to run something on your computer or access this or do this. And so it's doing its thing, creating little pieces of software that it needs to do its job, accessing tools that it already has access to, but it's able to follow these instructions. And so there's this middle layer of people that started using it for this, work and life management use case. And then since it can already do all that stuff anyways, that then helped Anthropic essentially create this product where it's still doing all of that same stuff, but you can click and talk to your computer and point it to this folder without having to live in that coding environment to do so.
Okay, cool. That makes sense to me. So there's this amazing desktop tool called Claude Code that people were using to code, but because the people who know how to code are great with technology, they started to realize that it has different applications. But when you say that it accesses files, right? Like the way our listeners are going to be thinking about files is like they know that they could make something digitally on a web browser, and then they could choose to like file download that to their desktop. It's kind of like a physical digital artifact.
Mhm.
And they can click and drag it into web messaging services or email, stuff like that. That's how they think about files. Are you saying that Claude Code and now Claude Cowork are using files like that? Is that what you mean by files? Or do you mean inside of some application, there's a database where you write prompts of like, hey, when you're messaging someone at Slack for me, talk like this. And when you're writing emails for me, speak like this. And it knows which prompt to go grab without you having to like open a GPT. Like, help me understand that better.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both. So one, it can interact with files that you download or things on your desktop, for example. And I'll show a use case of how just a simple test for it, I used it to clean up my desktop. Now, mind you, I am somebody who I use Claude Code heavily, right? So like I am used to, using this stuff to do a bunch of different things. It's a part of my daily workflow now, and it's probably the piece of software that I leverage the most. So I already have a bunch of stuff built out there where like I'm probably not going to duplicate the work in Cowork, but for a lot of people who, this is their first entry into this makes a lot more sense to use. So it can access files on your desktop. The other cool thing that they did, we did the episode on agentic browsing and how like GPT Atlas was super cool and kind of blew our minds. Well, Anthropic created a Chrome plugin for Claude Code. Well, I guess for Claude also, but for Claude Code, where it can actually interact with your browser for you. So now think about things that you can start to do. It can read files on your computer. It can open up your Chrome or do stuff in your Chrome browser as if you're clicking around. So you can have it interact with your web pages that you're on, your email folders and all this stuff. But the other layer of these files are a bunch of markdown files. Markdown is basically a way to create text files with certain syntax. So like the pound sign or the hashtag sign is like a header, and you use an asterisk to bold something. And so there's just different formatting. And the reason that Markdown was created is because long before the days where we had Microsoft Word that can visualize all this stuff for us as we're typing, all of these files were contained in basically text documents. And so you needed a way to actually tell the computer that I want this bolded or I want this to be a header or whatever. So Markdown is essentially the way to write where instead of just a bunch of plain boring text, it looks formatted when you view it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, it's a concept, but all it is a way to format text in a document. And this is because we didn't always have Microsoft Word to visualize that for us. Right. And so Markdown is the preferred format for documents, text documents for language models to read. And we can get into the nitty gritty of why, but there's this really cool technology thing. Markdown is a carryover from the early days of programming and text editing. And that's the preferred format. And so these instructions files are basically Markdown files where you type some stuff, you type some instructions, and now Claude has a list of these instruction files, these text documents essentially that tell it what to do. And again, all of this stuff for people who are used to coding and working in these software development environments, cool. They use Markdown all the time. They use this formatting all the time. But for other, like for just people who aren't software developers, like I don't want to know how to do Markdown formatting. I don't know what that means. Like, what do I have to type? And so by moving this into this desktop app, you don't have to worry about any of that. You just type into the box, you create your instructions the way that you normally do just by interacting with ChatGPT or Claude in your browser, and it's able to configure everything such that it can do what it needs to do without you having to worry about what format this doc is in or this or that or the other thing.
Got it. Okay, cool. So for our listeners, what is this rival? Does this rival like Atlas could because of like the browser extension component, or is this a new unique thing that they need to go experience because there hasn't been anything in generative AI that works like this? Like, what is this replacing or being competitive with?
Yeah. So people are saying that this is the first thing that has happened in the AI space that feels like AGI. So
Okay.
for people who have been using Claude Code with the new Opus model, it can create these beautiful software programs for you. It can integrate with all of your systems and your apps, and now it can control your browser and it can do all of these things in the background. And it can spin off little sub-agents to do background tasks. So it can say,
Mm.
spin up an email monitoring agent that's going to look at my email, and then when it finds something, let me know so I can do something with it, right? So this is the first product where we're starting to see this agentic capability accessible for the everyday person without buying enterprise software, without having to configure a bunch of workflows or click around. I mean, we've talked about the agent kit that OpenAI released, which is helpful for building some workflows. But this is the first piece of software that's truly able to end to end with really no restrictions, build whatever you can describe. And it has all of the tools to do it. And so now that it can access your browser, now that it's living in this, pretty desktop app, this is now, people are starting to say, this is what the start of what AGI could be, because I can describe what I want and it just does the stuff in the background for me. And next thing I know, it's like turning on the microwave. Like I pop my lunch in the microwave, I heat it up, and then microwave things happen. And now I have some warm foods. This is what a lot of people are comparing this to. So it's like Atlas in some ways, but as cool as Atlas is, it takes a really long time for it to do tasks. Sometimes it's kind of painful watching it like drag the mouse and click and all this stuff. So this is combining some of that functionality with speed and with the ability to switch to a completely different system in the background as needed. And, like, okay, I'm browsing, but now I need to upload this Word doc, or I need to create a document that I then email to this person. It can do all of that in the background.
Does it make you feel like you're at Coachella while it's doing agentic things with strobe lights and all that kind of stuff?
Not out of the box, but so this is actually kind of funny. Very brief tangent. The developer community loves building funny things and open sourcing them, meaning they just share them with everybody. I have seen so many pixelated 2D game representations of Claude Code working. People have built plugins where like you tell the agents to build something and it just like pops up and it looks like a video game, and you see the old like strategy games like Age of Empires and StarCraft or whatever. People have built visual representations of like Age of Empires. So as your agents are doing tasks, they're like completing a building and stuff, and you can watch it on screen. So people have built some very funny ways to visualize this stuff happening, which it doesn't feel like you're at a rave, but it's still kind of cool.
I love how you just do a StarCraft reference in there. Your inner geek is coming out. Did you play StarCraft?
I did. I wasn't very good, but I did play. But when I was in college, we went to like a gaming convention and I watched people from Korea play StarCraft live. And it's the most mind-boggling thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen so many mouse clicks and keyboard taps happen in the span of 3 seconds in my life.
It is funny. Like, imagine if you took those computer skills and like applied it to like software development or something, like how good you could be. Question though, who did you play as when you played StarCraft? I was a Protoss guy.
Ooh, nice. I was mostly Terran.
You were Terran. Okay, nice.
I did a brief stint as Zerg, and I was like, I can't live like this. It's just too much chaos.
It's too gross. There's too much like splatterings and just.
No, I couldn't do it. I was like, I just can't function like this.
Zerg reminds me, their whole vibe, at least it was when I played it back in like 99, 2000. It's very like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. I don't know if you watch Stranger Things. Lots of just like gurgly, weird stuff. Very creepy. You're right. You can't live like that for too long. Like Protoss, Terran. I like the Terran guy who used to like the flamethrower guy. When you pick
Yeah.
him, he'd be
Oh yeah.
smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. Yeah. It's man, what a rabbit hole to go down. So
And and we just lost 5 subscribers.
yeah, that's fine. Whatever. They'll come back later. So some have said that people who got really good at strategy games like that back in the day, it's like perfect training for living in a world where you're manipulating multiple AI agents because you're like controlling all of these workflows at the same time. So there's some carryover skill there.
It's a really interesting point, actually. And for those who haven't played one of these like strategy games that Justin's talking about, we've all probably grown up and played like Mario or like Duck Hunt or like Madden or whatever. And when you play those video games that you all have experienced, it's kind of like you are just this character navigating the world. And what Justin's alluding to is with those games, you're building up a fortress wall over here to protect your civilization. And you're also building like a replenishment fort so that you can feed your soldiers. And you're also doing war plans over here. I'm paraphrasing how it's done, but like you have to be clicking all around and you're building up this like civilization to kind of go to battle. So you're not just like watching one character navigate a maze trying to get mushrooms and gold coins. Instead, like you're thinking about all these things happening in parallel. And that is a really interesting analogy to how efficient you could be if you got really good at getting agents to work for you in the background. And a simple example of that is what Justin talked about on the previous episode, where he said he used the Atlas browser to look up flights for him based off of what he typed into the box. And he went back about his business and came back later and it had found the perfect flights. That's an example of giving an agent a task and moving on to another thing. It's like, if you're like a great manager, you're excellent at delegating to the right people at the right time. And that's what this could be like. So maybe you could show it to us.
Yeah, of course.
Show us like some examples for those who are listening on Spotify or Apple. We will orate, but go check us out on YouTube. Give us a subscription over there if you want to see the visual aids. Want to show us something practical that somebody listening to this podcast could do with it. Because if I had just stumbled upon this pod, I'd be like, okay, I'm glad I know about this thing. It sounds interesting, but I'm not really going to use it. I bet if you show us an application of it, we might find that we could get some people to try it.
So this is the Claude desktop app. So now you have the ability to chat here. You have a coding. So they have a desktop version of Claude Code where you can kick off some of these topics. But a lot of our listeners are probably going to see this and they're like, what is grep? And I don't want to know what this is, right? Mm-hmm. So if I actually click over to this new Cowork tab, I can do a bunch of different things, and it's got some stuff out of the box. It's like create a file, organize files, crunch data, make a prototype, prep for the day. And just a very simple use case that I used, which I think a lot of us can relate to, is my desktop was a mess. You accumulate files over time as you're working. You have stuff from a project that doesn't matter anymore, right? Your desktop just starts to give you anxiety. And so what I did was I kicked off a conversation here and I said, hey, look at my desktop and give me a list of files organized by folder that have not been opened or updated in longer than 3 months, right? Look at the last time this stuff was updated and just give me a list, organize it by folder. And what you'll notice here is it ran commands in the background. So it's actually it's writing scripts for itself and executing code in the background to do this stuff. But I don't need to know any of that. I give it a very simple instruction and it reasons through all of the things that it needs to do and does this for me. And so it created a Python script, which again, if you're not a software dev, you don't even need to know what that is. Don't worry, there isn't a snake in your room. It's a programming language. But again, that doesn't matter to you. What it's doing is it's doing all of the things that it needs to do in the background. And then it goes, perfect. I found a lot of old files. Not surprised, right? And it gave me a report, which then shows up in this artifacts section. And it says, I found 6,000 files out of 23,000 files that haven't been modified in over 3 months since this date. And it's like the pictures of my daughter, which I'm not going to delete, but I'm glad it flagged those. A bunch of stuff in my code folders, reimbursements and screenshots. And it gave me a report. And then I looked at the report and I said, delete all that stuff. And I just told it to do it. And it does it, right? It's just, and again, it's keeping me in the loop here. So it's informing me of what it's doing. It's saying, hey, here's what I found. Here's what I'm going to delete. Are you cool with that? I want to go a layer deeper and actually see what it's doing. I can open up the source files. I can see what it's actually working on. And it just gives me this kind of play-by-play here. And then it says, hey, successfully deleted those. Here's the files you have remaining, whatever. Gives me all the context for what it's doing. So as it's gathering context, I pointed it at my desktop. It's showing me all the screenshots from stuff that it's doing as it's working. It gives me the output in an artifact. It monitors progress here. And the mind-blowing thing about this is if I needed it to do something really complicated, it could spin up a bunch of different subagents to delegate these tasks to, and I'm going to be able to monitor all that progress as things happen. So that stuff happens in the background. If I approve it, I don't need to worry about what all of these individual agents are doing or what all of these tasks are that are happening. And this is probably the simplest bare minimum use case for something that you can do with this that is also incredibly useful.
Wow, this is really powerful. It's like how we talked about the OK Computer example on Star Trek last time we were speaking about how you can just, in that sense, science fiction, didn't matter if you were talking to the thruster room to make the spaceship move faster, or you wanted to page to somebody down in the infirmary. In these science fiction things, you could just say, OK, computer, and it kind of knew what system to use. It knew what you were referencing, and then it would do the thing. And what you've shown here is just that. Because it's a desktop application, you download the Claude app for your computer. And then that gives it the ability to do things on your physical computer. And you also have the extension, so it can handle the things that are going on in your Chrome browser. You don't have to tell it, I need you to come up with 5 agents, 1 agent for this, 1 for that. It does smart things like create the sub-agents that it needs to create. And it has access to tooling because you give it approvals. One thing that I noticed when I signed up for it is it really went heavy. Like, are you sure you want to approve all this? And I'm a really YOLO kind of guy when it comes to tech. If you're going to make my life easier, take my data, hold my beer, you take the wheel. Like, I don't care. So I gave it all these permissions, but this thing must really be powerful because they were really like, are you sure you want us to do this? Is this the most powerful thing on the internet right now? And we can really do a lot. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to check it.
Yeah, whatever. Just let it rip. It's like that 40-page legal contract where you have to initial every page.
Yeah.
But that's actually a really good point. Like, for anybody who wants to understand how powerful this stuff is, first of all, they're very good about asking for permission to do things. You can configure it so that it can do certain things automatically, but it always asks for permission to do other stuff. A common example there is like, if it ever is going to delete a file, you can be like, please always triple check with me that I do want to delete this file, and it will check. But just the fact that you can configure it with all these permissions and it has the ability to do all these things speaks to how powerful this can be. But I'm going to try to share, here it is, 7 insane use cases. So this is from ucstrategies.com, and I'll narrate these for the people who are not watching this on YouTube, some of the things that this can do. So instantly clean up and organize a messy desktop. Check. We just talked through that. Create fully branded presentations from existing assets. You can already do this with other tools like ChatGPT or whatever, but you have to upload them or those files, or find the files that you're looking for. In this case, you can just say, hey, use all of my folders or all of my files from X project on my computer, make me a deck, do this. And again, because it can spin up these subagents to do the work, it can find those files and it can do this for you, no problem, right? So you don't have to find everything yourself. Editing and repurposing videos for social media. It can edit video files on your computer, resize, crop, add audio cues, compress content, prepare files for posting. It can automate social media posting end to end without using third-party software.
Wait. Stop, timeout on number 3 and number 4.
It can control the browser. It can control programs on your computer.
Okay. For those who are listening, who just enjoy our amazing content, we have full-time jobs, and Justin has a full-time job, and he's also getting his master's on top of his master's, and he's a dad, and he's a pro athlete. If 3 and 4 are legit, I have more time than you, but I still feel like I don't have enough time. If 3 and 4 are legit, I can save this podcast a ton of effort. Do you really believe it could do that? Or is that stuff that's like, it would work really cool in a demo, but like practically it's not going to be that great? What do you think?
So I know that this is possible in Claude Code today. And again, this is just Claude Code with mustache glasses on in a friendlier UI, right? Like, this is Claudette Code.
Yeah, it is Claudette. Okay, yeah. Yep.
So 3 and 4 are legit. Learning your clicks and repeating them. So, hey, remember when I was on that website the other day and I had to go through that 6-step process? I have to do that every week. Can you automate that for me? And it'll create a little thing. It'll be like, is this what you want to do? Yes, these are the instructions. Boom. It can learn your clicks and repeat them.
Whoa.
Right? No
Whoa.
longer do you have to download like mouse jiggler software to make it look like you're working at remote jobs, right? You can just boom.
They make stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it's real. It's real. It is a real piece of software. Batch generating assets without manually copying and pasting. Again, it can find files for you. It can do this stuff for you in the background. It can show you what it's made. Pulling analytics from external tools. So pulling data from different systems, from CSV files, from data sets, from stuff that you have that you're logged into for work. You want to create a chart and a graph and then turn that into a presentation for your work project. Cool. You can pull all of this stuff in. It can do this for you. Because Claude has number 8 here, it has the ability to create custom skills. Claude skills are basically like these projects or custom GPTs that we've talked about, but they're even more powerful because they can also include code, scripts, and other things. And again, you don't need to write that or even know that they exist, but you can have Claude create a skill for a common task that you do. I do this with creating documents that I have to create in bulk all the time. Like there's certain documents that I create for all of the deals and customers that I'm involved in. And I have templates for how I want those to look, what I want the inputs to be, where I want it to pull information from. And it just can repeat this process for me. And then I can just review it and say thumbs up, thumbs down. It can change it. So these are 8 use cases that are incredibly broad and incredibly powerful for things that are really annoying, take a lot of time, and prior to now probably required you to buy or subscribe to some third-party software and still waste your time, waste your money, have to learn how to use that system. It can do all of this stuff in the background for you once you start talking to it.
I'm a skeptic, not about AI, right? But about the efficacy of this doing this. So I understand enough to know about MCP. I also know that I've given Claude to basically do whatever it wants and probably get me fired from my job because it can message whoever it wants and email whoever it wants.
All the permissions, unlimited permissions.
Really, I literally said nothing is off. Nothing is off limits. So I know MCP, it's got my tools. I know I have the desktop application. I already have installed the browser extension. I guess my experience with like the Atlas browser was like, yeah, I definitely thought it was the coolest experience I had with technology, but it felt like a prototype. It felt like OpenAI talking about it at Dev Day, and it's like, wow, the promise is bright, and the demo half worked. For those who listened to that episode, I told it to archive all these certain types of emails in my Gmail, and the mouse went through and did half, and it left the other half. And I was like, it's technology. I'm going to be very interested, and I will report back on whether this can really do like what I want it to do. Like, can I update my forecast in HubSpot, my sales forecast in HubSpot? And it has the MCP there, it has the browser extension. It observes what the numbers are. And can I just use Whisper AI, which we should talk about in a different episode you told me about, and go hold the control key and go, Whisper, update my best case to this, my likely to that, and my worst case to that. And it knows what to do because I said that into Claude and it knows the click path and knows how to update and everything. If I can get to a point where technology can do that, and I don't think it's going to like make not a silly mistake, a very practical mistake because technology is hard and nuanced and weird, then I will say that I do kind of think AGI might be here because that is a general intelligent thing that knows how to use systems and tools and reason through things and plan tasks. So this is extremely eye-opening. And thank you for sharing all these details with us.
Yeah. The things that I'll say is OpenAI did a ton and is still doing a ton for the AI space. The launch of GPT-4 was like this huge moment, this like earthquake in the tech world where people started realizing that this is actually really good. I can use it to create content and do work for me, and it is pretty good at it. And now it can do math and do numbers and reason and all these things. Anthropic has released a series of products where they've kind of completely disrupted what's possible in the AI space. And a lot of it was tied to their latest reasoning model, Opus 4.5. It's really powerful. And the power is it has all these underpinnings of Claude Code as part of it. So there are APIs that exist for HubSpot. There's MCP for HubSpot as well. But like even if something doesn't have MCP, chances are if it's software online, it has API endpoints that you can communicate with the software with, which we talked about, right? The computers can talk to that piece of software and get data or push data. So those APIs exist. Those APIs are documented somewhere online. So if you talk to Claude Cowork and say, I want to do this in HubSpot and this over here and connect to this over here, even if there isn't MCP, it can find those APIs. It can create code scripts in the background that handle certain tasks. It can wrap those up in a repeatable Claude skill so that the next time it does it the same way. And it can manage all of this in the background without you having to ever peek under the hood and look at the messy details of the things that it's doing. Obviously, you can verify its work and see what it's doing and make sure that it's not going crazy. You don't have to give it YOLO permissions like Matt has, right? You can rein it in a little bit. But point being is you don't need to understand how to write software or write code in order for it to create the code and the software that it needs to do the things that it needs to do. You don't need to understand how to connect to these systems because it understands how to connect to these systems. So all you really need to do is be able to describe what you want the result to be. And we talked about this a while ago, right? Like the power of AI and really what AGI is pushing for is the ability to ask for an outcome and then AI handles the process to get there. So you can just say, this is the outcome that I want. And it will ask you questions along the way. Like, do you want me to do it this way or this way? Do you want me to go through this thing on your computer or this thing on your computer? Are these the files you're referring to, or should I change what I'm doing? You don't have to look at all the messy details of how it's cleaning your house. You just close your eyes, you take a nap, you wake up, and now your house is clean. And that is what I think is this mind-blowing moment for a lot of people that this latest model from Anthropic unlocked, because now it's smart enough to do all this stuff, whereas before it was pretty smart, but it wasn't quite there.
I think you just helped me have a nice unlock with what you explained there. And I'll attempt to wrap us up on this. As long as we all have been using technology, like we know that we can open the Messages app on our phone and then message somebody. And technically we know it's software and it's code, but we don't know what's happening. But we know there's this Messages app. And we knew that there was a file sharing app and a photo sharing app and a social media app on our phone and a music app. And we're happy that developers somewhere have coded those apps so that we can have nice experiences on our phones or on our computer. The Opus 4.5 model, which I have been very impressed with because I use Claude all the time, is so good at coding that you can describe what you want technology to do for you. And then it goes and writes a code that you don't have to look at. It's not a feature that's pre-made. It's so good at coding that it can create a code or write a terminal command or whatever to go execute on what you told it to do. So it's almost like having a software engineer in your pocket that goes, this computer doesn't even have that app. That app might not even exist, but I know so much about how to code. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to code up an app for myself in the background to use, and I'll get back to you when the task is done. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what it's saying. It is very much like having a software developer in your pocket who
Wow.
also understands your life, who also understands the things that you want, your preferences, how you like work done. Because as you start using these tools more, you build up this library of instructions and processes, and it has memory for how you've solved tasks in the past. So it can create presentations that look like the presentations that you said were good before that it created. And so it creates this ecosystem where a lot of this existed before, but you still had to point and click and manually do things a lot and upload files and create custom GPTs and do all this stuff. But now you have this personal assistant who also happens to be a senior level Google software engineer. And that's a very powerful combination.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking us through this. This was awesome. I will definitely get back to the audience next time about how I'm using it. For those who don't know, we've expanded in 2026 and we are on all the social platforms now.
All of them.
Your Instagrams, TikToks, LinkedIn's, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it, we're everywhere. So if you want to keep up with us with short form content, make sure you give us a follow there. Please like these videos, subscribe. We saw a huge bump in subscription just this week alone. We went up almost 1,000% on subscriptions. So
Nice.
Thanks to you all for pressing that button. Share it with more people if you find it useful. I appreciate the support, everybody. It's really starting to actually develop some traction for us, and we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thanks for listening. And my closing statement to you all will be this. I encourage everybody to try it for a month. Try it and see how powerful it is. And I think it will really open your mind to what this technology can really do. Highly, highly recommend it. But that's all I got. Until next time.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All righty. Bye.